Paul, ministry support, and a misunderstood choice. Part 6. In Part 5, we saw that Paul never intended his personal sacrifice to become a burden on ministers or an excuse for neglect by churches. Now in Part 6, we look at how the early church actually practiced support and what Paul expected from believing communities. From the beginning, the church understood shared responsibility. In Acts chapter 4, verse 34, Scripture says, "Nor was there anyone among them who lacked, for all who were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and distribution was made to each as anyone had need." This shows a community mindset. The burden of ministry was not placed on one person alone. Paul expected churches to participate responsibly in gospel work. In Romans chapter 15, verse 27, Paul explains the principle clearly. If the Gentiles have been partakers of their spiritual things, their duty is also to minister to them in material things. Spiritual benefit creates material responsibility. Paul never treated support as charity. He treated it as partnership. This is why Paul often used the language of fellowship. In Philippians chapter 1, verse 5, he thanked the church for your fellowship in the gospel from the first day until now. Then in Philippians chapter 4, verse 15, Paul becomes even more specific. No church shared with me concerning giving and receiving, but you only. The phrase giving and receiving shows mutual exchange, not dependence. Paul did not see himself as a beggar. He saw himself as a partner in mission. This is why Paul could receive support without shame and refuse it without pride. He understood that ministry support was part of God's design, not a human invention. Paul also taught churches to plan support responsibly. In 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 1 and 2, Paul instructed believers to set aside resources regularly, not emotionally or impulsively. This teaches us that gospel support should be intentional, orderly, and thoughtful. Paul never taught churches to abandon ministers. He taught churches to participate wisely. And he never taught ministers to manipulate support. He taught ministers to walk in integrity. The early church model was not poverty on one side and neglect on the other. It was shared responsibility. In the final part, we will bring everything together and answer the central question. How should believers apply Paul's example today without distorting Scripture or burdening the church?